Hari Om. Om Sadasiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Narayana Samarambham Acharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Naham Karta Hari Karta Puja Kavachakram Yadyat Karma Karo Vidaspadakiram Shambho Tavaranam Om Gam Ganpataya Namaha Om Gum Gurubhyo Namaha Om Aim Saraswati Namaha Om Namo Bhagavate Sivanandaya Om Namo Bhagavate Chidanandaya Om Namo Bhagavate Krishnaya Yadevi Sarvabhuteshu Vidyarupaya Samsita Namasasya 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 Namo Namaha Yadevi Sarvabhuteshu Chitirupaya Samsita Namasasya 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 Namo Namaha Yadevi Sarvabhuteshu Vidyarupaya Samsita Salutations and adorations at the lotus feet of Gurudev, Sri Swami Sivananda Maharaj. We also have sacred remembrance and reverence at the feet of His Holiness, Sri Swami Sivananda Maharaj and Sri Swami Krishnanji Maharaj, who are the prime disciples of Gurudev and who have carried forward the message and the teachings of Gurudeva to each and all of us. We also offer prostrations to them. We also offer prostrations to the lotus feet of Mother, by whose grace the whole existence has come into being, and by her very grace we are here and able to have little conversation, take part in this wonderful spiritual course. Initially I had thought, that we will talk about that Divine Mother, that is Universal Mother, the companion, the power, imponderable power of Parabrahman, and by union with that Parabrahman, the whole existence has come to be. But the same Mother probably wishes, that rather than just talking about that, you continue what you are doing. Whatever you do is my manifestation, whether it is this subject or that subject. Ultimately it is that Mother only. So, considering that as Lord's wish, we just straight away go on to that, and wherever possible, we try to sink into this movie also. We are discussing about the Upnishad and Vedanta, and as we saw that the vision, the Tatparya, the ultimate goal of Vedanta is oneness. Unity of individual with the universe. Unity you may call, or oneness you may call. Right? Unity means initially you feel that is different and then you are different. Oneness means you understand their oneness and they are not different at all. Whatever way we say, so it is the oneness or the unity of the individual soul with the universal soul. And in the process, it also touches upon the unity of the manifested world, which you call it as a Jagat. So Paramatman or the Supreme Reality has manifested himself in two ways. One is called as Kshetra and one is called as a Kshetragna. So Kshetragna is a world which we see around us, made up of 5 gross elements and 5 subtle elements. Right? And the one who knows that Kshetra is called as Kshetragna, and is also called as Jiva. So Kshetra can be called as Jagata and Kshetragna can be called as Jiva or the individual. So whether you call Jagata, Jiva and Jagadish to consider, it looks like a trinity, but in essence it is one and non-dual Parabrahman which alone exists. The rest is its manifestation. So the vision of Vedanta, as we tried to see yesterday, was establishing the identity of the individual with the universe. It just doesn't reveal or it just doesn't talk about the proof of the Atman. Because as I said yesterday, Atman is the most intimate thing to us. Atman is the most immediate thing to us. And every second you feel that I am there, I am there. Nobody has abhava of one's existence. Correct? So Atman is very much revealed to us. But we know Atman in a limited sense. Samanya Jnana is the word. We do not understand the self, myself or the Atman in its entire form. Vishesha Jnana we don't have. And for that Vishesha Jnana, Yesterday we were trying to see that once we have that individual self, you know aparoksha, it is immediately felt. I don't think it is all pervading. It is omnipotent, right? That's the message, that's the limitation that we have. And the Vedanta or the Upnishad message is for unfolding, that oneness. That's the whole thing. Now, how do we do it? That's the question. If this is the message, and it's also said that the universal is Sat Chit Ananda, Satyam Jnanam Anantam. That is the goal, that's the moksha, that's the liberation, and that is what everybody wants. Even if we are not in that state, that is our want. So how do we reach that? We may call it the moksha purushartha, or we may call it that establishing or upholding the identity of the individual in the universal. How do we do it? What are the normal means of our knowledge? The normal means of knowledge is perception. Correct? So anything that we see through these 5 jnanendriyas, that is how we normally gain the knowledge. Correct? Anything which belongs to the world, kshetra, that is perceived by us through these 5 jnanendriyas. Correct? We can see through the eyes, hear through the ears, taste through the tongue, like that. And this is called as perception. So anything which we learn or which we gain from the sensual experience is called as a perception. And anything which we learn by creative interpretation, analysis of the mind and the intellect, that is called as inference. That is called as inference. Because we can logically analyze and correct things. That's called anuman. So, is Parabrahman or Supreme Reality, which we also call as Kshetra. It is not different from Kshetra, because Jiva and Ishvara are same entity, correct? So the real Swarupa of the Jiva or the Ishvara, can it be perceived or can it be unfolded by any of the senses or the mind? Then the answer is no, they say, because even in that Upanishad also, the Kena Upanishad also, there is a very famous verse, which is, I think, you must have heard about it. I think that book I missed here. That sloka is there. Yato vacho nivarsante aprapya manasa saha. So that particular supreme reality cannot be grasped by the senses or cannot be grasped by the mind or the intellect. Why? Because it is very subtle. It is very subtle. Supposing you have a microorganism whose dimension is of the order of, say, 1 micrometer or 1 micron or 0.1 micron. Can we see with the eye? We cannot see with the eye. How much we can see with the eye? It's pure physics, But any object which has got 50 micron size, around 50 micron, that can be seen by the 0.05 millimeter. Correct? So that much we can see by naked. Anything beyond that we cannot see. But we cannot see doesn't mean it is not there. Supposing something goes into solution, salt or sugar, it is nano size. It can't be seen by microscope. Microorganism can be seen by a compound microscope. But if something goes into solution, it has got nano size. It can't be seen even by microscope also. But doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You need that particular instrument which is capable of it. So our senses and our mind are relatively gross, and the Atman or our innermost self, what we want to comprehend, is very subtle, very fine. Here we call nano size. It could be much finer than nano also. In homeopathy also you see that medicine, they dilute 100 times. And they still say that medicine is active. So there is no molecule there. But the energy is there, vibration is there, that you are seeing. So here the Atman is subtlest. Sukshmatam is the word, right? Not Sukshmata. So the mind and the senses cannot do it. It doesn't mean they are completely useless, not like that, Ultimately, when we do the right tapasya, right sadhana, the brahmakara vritti will again arise in the mind and the intellect only. But at that time, the mind and intellect have been purified, have been rendered subtle. So through the eyes, it can catch that brahmakara vritti. Today we cannot, because very gross, we cannot take it, correct? So the condition of the senses, the mind and the intellect that we have today, we cannot uphold or we cannot comprehend, we cannot grasp that Atma Tattva. So what is to be done now? And once you are able to grasp it, then all the problem is solved. But how do we do it? Because, as I said, the normal means of knowledge doesn't work here. So the only means of knowledge, the only means which will work for upholding, for realizing, or for accessing that selfless Atma Tattva is Vedanta or the Shabda Brahma. So words also have limitations, but ultimately to that Parabrahman or that Atman we can approach only through the words. So Vedanta is not just a school of philosophy. I was saying yesterday also, as one Swami Maharaj, Dayananda Swami Maharaj said, it is not to be seen. Normally we see 6 Asik Darshana, we study like that. But if you look deeper, he says it is not something which is a school of philosophy, because then there will be some limitations if you do that. So ultimately, it is an immediate means pramana for revelation of that. And how do we do it? Because we are unable to do it. So when we go to a realized person, we go to a Kshatriya person, we go to Brahmanishya Guru who has realized it. And only then there is something lighted. The lighted thing only can lighten the other thing. So because they have been able to perceive that selfless Atman Tattvan, they will describe us in 2 ways. There one way is neti, that whatever else we think we are, it will negate, and finally that. And at the same time, they will also be able to, although it is Nirguna, but Shantam, Advaitam, so many words are there which also will describe the Atma. So when we go to this Mahapurusha, and when we talk to them, when we learn from them, 2 things are important. We have to understand the Mithyatva or the unrighteousness of all that is an Atma. What is not Atma? That is Atma Buddhi for our own soul. And how the whole process starts. So that is how they say that the only means is we have to go to realize stage, they call Brahmanishya Guru, who experienced the truth in the innermost recesses. And although it cannot be explained in words, but through the words only, Shastra words only, they will reveal to us the nature of that. First they will reveal the nature of Anatma, so that we can negate, and then they will also reveal the nature of Atma, where we can have Atma Buddhi, and we can gain that. And then they say that just as a sick man is there, Rogi is there, his body is disturbed, and then various chemical substances or whatever we call organs are not functioning, and we are at unease with ourselves, But whenever we go to right physician and the right medicines are prescribed to us, ultimately that body is rendered in its original form, the mind is rendered in its original form, and we feel at peace, we feel at ease. So that is Roga of the Sansara. But the another Roga is Gaurava. And that is what Swami Shivaji Maharaj realized. Even when he practiced medicine in the most professional, in the most compassionate, in the most humanly manner also, he realized that reading a man free from only physical and mental disease is not going to bring the ultimate peace, the ultimate happiness. Because there is disease, or you call limitation of ignorance other than body and mind, which is responsible for this Bhavaroga. So the Ajnana is basically the disease of the Bhavaroga, and that has to be eliminated. That has to be removed by Jnana. And when this particular Jnana comes to us, then that peace, bliss state, experience, and that is the message of the whole Vedanta. Correct? Now yesterday we saw something about Mahavakya. And so many students, colleagues of ours also were discussing about the inquiry. So we can just have a second look at that. Correct? So we said that there are 4 Mahavakyas are there, and all the Vedas which are there, so many in number, Veda Vyasa, just put them into 4 Vedas also. And out of the 4 Vedas, the Rigveda is the ancient most, and there we have the Mahavakya from Aitharya Upnishad. What was that? Prajnanam Brahma. Consciousness is Brahma. And we will see today only in the Mandukya Upanishad that consciousness is there whenever we study the Mandukya Upanishad about Omkara. So it talks about the 4 states of experience what we have. Right? Which are they? They say Atma Chatushpada, like that they say in Upnishad. So what are the 4 states? Waking state. You are not even, ego is also not present. Ahankara is also not there. And that is why you have the pleasure of that Ahankara. We don't get in that state also. And that is why we experience bliss. And they call that bliss as a negative bliss. Means it is absence of unhappiness. Rather than that saying it is happiness, it is a state of absence of unhappiness. You don't have any problem of the mind. You don't have, even if you are diseased, you don't know that you are diseased. Mind is not, you don't worry about that. And Ahankara, which is a cause of concern, is not dead actually, but it is merging into Mool Avidya Prakriti. As you said, Karana Sharira. Right? And that state is called as a Prajna. That is called as a Prajna. So what happens there? That Ahankara is not there. So who is remaining there? What is remaining? As you said, Karana Sharira means Avidya. And Atma Tattva is always there. Everything depends upon that. So that because that avidya is there, we are very close to that particular self, but the knowledge doesn't accrue to us because there is a avaran, there is a barrier in terms of that avidya. So that state is called as a prajna. Now, since you have discussed this, suddenly this point has come. This state is very similar to samadhi. This state is very similar to samadhi. When they say Nidra Samadhi Sthiti, like that they call, even Shankaracharya, Nidra Samadhi Sthiti they call, in that one of the sutras they call. So is there a difference between these 2 states, Nidra and Samadhi? Both are state of peace, bliss. Nidra everybody likes. Even one day if we don't get the sleep, we certainly will disturb. We can't see, we can't even talk. Samadhi also is a state of bliss. The difference is what? That in Nidra, or in the sleep, or in the sushupti, that ajnana is there, avarana is there. So we experience the bliss of the Atman without knowing intimately what is Atman, without knowing what the Swarupa of Atman is. But we get the taste of it. Suppose you are standing something in a very cold place nearby, you find the coolness, even if you don't know what is outside. So likewise, we experience the bliss, of that Atman. Consciousness is there. That is why, conscious Atman actually, correct? So, you get the bliss, but you don't know Atman, this knowledge is not there. So, when you wake up, what will happen? Again, the Ahankara will sprout. Again, the Ahankara will sprout. But in case of Samadhi, or difficult for Samadhi, the person is there. The peace and bliss is same as Nidra, but he is conscious. He is able to cognize the Atman. And that is why whenever he wakes up in the morning, whenever the person wakes up in the morning, again all those cross in the circle body, their functions and limitations will come. So that happiness is limited to the time you sleep. The moment you get up, again all those things will come up. It will not be a permanent remedy, but God gives you, or rather gives us, a constant indication that there is a possibility in you to be able to attain this state of peace and bliss, which although you are ignorant, avidya is there, but still you are experiencing it. That's the bliss. Modern science interprets sleep in a different way. That is also right. Maybe there are several functions and this and that. But the ultimate meaning of sleep, Vedanta understands takes sleep in a very deeper way. Physical science doesn't take it that way. Right? So this is the message. Now the main point what we are trying to discuss about, we discussed a little bit about Mandukya Upanishad here, and that is basically what Avasthatraya Vivek was like that. Correct? Maybe we will conclude with that. But then, what is common in these 3 states? Consciousness. What is common is consciousness. So waking state is there, dream state is there, and sleep state is there. So when you are in the waking state, and when you identify yourself with a waking state, you are called as Vaishwanara. When you are in the dream state, you identify yourself with a dreamer, you are called as Tejas. And when you are in the sleeping state, you are called as a Prajna. So that one Atman can behave as Vaishwanara in the waking state, it can behave as a Tejas in the dream state, or Prajna in the sleep state. But all these 3 are connected. That is why whatever we see in the sleep, whatever we see in the dream, we can remember in the waking state. Whatever experience of happiness we have in the sleep, we can experience the waking state. So consciousness is common. Consciousness is common. So in the entire Mandukya Upanishad, yesterday some of your colleagues were asking so how should one go about it for studying the Upanishad? And I said, I am not all that well versed in the subject, but I have read some of the realized sages saying, including the book of Swami Sivananda Maharaj and different Upanishads he has said. One is, I have forgotten that book, it is inside. Upanishad for the busy people. Title is such that he will definitely like to be. But very few slokas are there in Upanishad. And in Mandukya, that Varuna is there, this deity of the god. It takes the form of Manduk, this frog, and reveals. And Swamiji says that even if one is able to understand only Mandukya Upanishad, then the entire message of the Upanishad is deemed to be covered. So only Mandukya Upanishad is good enough if you want to really pursue. That's what Swamiji says, And Mandukya Upanishad, there is a Karika of Gaudapada. That is considered a very high text. And Shankaracharya is written Ashram that also. So Gaudapada, the Karika is on Mandukya Upanishad also. That, as you study further, this is something which you cannot just leave alone. This has to be pursued, correct? So Mandukya Upanishad, Karika or Gaudapada. So that is where the common link is consciousness. Because consciousness is there, all the states are there. So they call Anvaya Vyatirek Vivek also in Vedanta also. So Anvaya and Vyatirek, what does it mean? If one thing is there, other thing is there. If A is there, B is there. That's called as Anvaya. That's called as an Anvaya. And if B is not there, A is not there. That's called as a Vyatirek. That's called as a Vyatirek. Karya Karan, we saw yesterday, more or less same thing is explained as Anvaya Vyatireka. Yesterday we also saw that, correct? Cause and effect. So we start with that, effect and cause. So if we say, effect is there, means cause is there. So pot is there, that means clay is there. Pot is there, clay is there. Effect is there, cause is there. Karya is there, Karan is there. Because there is only Karan it comes, correct? So pot or the effect or the Karya is not independent. Correct? It is coming from that. Now other way around, can you say if pot is not there, clay is not there? We cannot say that. Because clay will be there in any form. Even if it is not in a pot form, clay will be there. Correct? So if clay is not there, pot is not there. Correct? So this is called Vyatireka. So Anvaya is what? Pot is there, so clay is there. And Vyatireka is what? If clay is not, pot is not. If effect is not, if cause is not, effect is not. This is called as Adhyara Gopal or Anvaya Vyatireka. So in this state, how will we apply Anvaya Vyatireka? We say that Jagrata, waking state is there because consciousness is there. Correct? If consciousness is not there, waking state will not be there. Dream state is there because consciousness is there. Sleeping state is there because that is how we remember the happiness and we recall. Consciousness is there even in the sleep state also. So consciousness is a connecting link. So Atma Chatushpada, when they say Mandukya Upanishad, what does it mean? That one which is waking state they call Bahishpratma. The Atman which is aware of the world outside. That is called as Bahishpratma. In the dream state it is Antapratma. It doesn't know anything about outside. But whatever thoughts, images are there in the mind, it only projects that. So it is Antapratma. Correct? And in the dream state it is called as in the sleep state it is called as a Prajna. Now Prajna actually is a very difficult word to understand. But if I tell you in a very simple way, what does it mean? It means Prajna is a state which is unmanifest and it can manifest into anything. That's the meaning of Prajna. See, if you have a little good example from science, I can give you a good simile of what is called as a stem cell. I hope everybody must have heard about stem cells. What are stem cells? They are there in our body, correct? And stem cells are taken out for different therapies also. So stem cell can differentiate into any kind of cell. Stem cell can make a liver cell, it can make a kidney cell, any kind of a cell can be formed from a stem cell. So it is unmanifest, but it can manifest into any form. So that Prajna Avastha is like Ishvara, at the higher level Ishvara. And individual level is called as a Prajna. At the Samasti level is called as an Ishvara. But Mandukya Upanishad doesn't talk about the Samasti, it talks about the Vesti only. So it can take any particular form. So sleep is considered the first avastha, antecedent. And then the Jagrata and Swapna will come. Normally we think first Jagrata and then comes sleep. But actually the antecedent is sleep. And then it can come into Jagrata or the Swapna. So here the entire message of that particular Mahavakya we just discussed in the process Mandukya Upanishad also, because separately I thought that time will not come today. So that is Prajnanam Brahma, consciousness is Brahman, and consciousness is their connecting link among all the four avastha, all the four states. And that is why it is called as the Turiya avastha. So Turiya avastha is the fourth state. But just because you want to differentiate from the three, it is called as the fourth. In Atma, Chatushvara like that. So the message which we get from that Satyam Jnanam, this Prajnanam Brahma is this. That is one Mahavakya. Okay? The second Mahavakya was Aham Brahmasmi. It comes from what? Yajurveda. The first thing was Swarupa Bodha Lakshana. Yesterday we also said that. Correct? It talks about Swarupa Bodha. So what is the nature of the Atma? Consciousness. And consciousness and bliss always go together. Krishna Swamiji Maharaj always used to say, consciousness and bliss always coexist. Wherever there is consciousness, there is bliss. And wherever there is bliss, there is consciousness. They are not in direct Chit Anand. When we say, that's the meaning Chit and Anand. They go together. Correct? So that is Swarup Bodh. Second is Aham Brahmasmi, Anusandhan Vakya. Now Anusandhan kab hoga? When already some teaching takes place, Upadesha. So Anusandhan is that the teacher has told Tattvamasi, and that the disciple or the Shishya will constantly think, that I am not what I think myself to be. I have taken myself something other than what I am. I have Sugha identity. I don't have my true identity. What I have is my Sugha identity. And I write my CV in any number of pages. Larger the number of pages, greater the problem. Because more and more we own up with what we are not. So here we say that constantly we are drinking, talking, sleeping, or whatever else we are doing, if constant Anusandhana means to follow, Anu means follow. So constantly that idea, that thought, we keep on following, we keep on meditating. Maybe initially it will look like, it is a very big thing we are talking and it's not practical. So many people will say like that. But we should not worry about it. Shastra Mahapurusha says that even if we have got Abheda Buddhi also, even if we don't experience Abheda, non-dual, but still if we have a feeling, that Abheda is the goal, and that is what I want to be, it helps. Abheda Buddhi or Abheda Vritti is also good, even if it is not our immediate experience. That Abheda Buddhi is there, is very important. So this is that Aham Brahmasmi that is coming from Yajurveda and Vedarantaka Upanishad. Vedarantaka is a very, very big Upanishad. The name also like Vedarantaka also. So that way. Then the third thing was that from Samveda, and that is Chandogya Upanishad, and that is Tattvamasi. We discussed yesterday also, correct? That's where the case after having learned the course comes back, and he feels that everything he has gained. When his father Uddalaka says that having known something, knowing that everything else becomes known, he says, no, I don't know that. And then when they say that this particular Tattvamasi, that message is there, that Tat, what we call as Brahman, what we call as Satyam, Anam, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Satchidananda, that is yourself, that is you. It looks very odd to accept like this, because we think constantly ourselves, they have a limited sense, and somebody says like this, how can you say like this? But then, that is the message. And as I said yesterday, it is one of the greatest revelation, the greatest equation. Tattvamasi is larger in scope than any other equations which we study in physics and modern science. And that is the beauty of our scriptures. And last is that Ayam Atma Brahma. That just now we discussed about that. That is basically from Mandukya Upanishad and Mandukya Upanishad, Atharvaveda. And then that is called as, yesterday I talked about Sakshatkara. Another word which is called about Anubhava Bodha. It is called as Anubhava Bodha like that. So we have got Swarupa Bodha, which describes what is the Atma. Then we have got the Upadesha Vakya, which tells us that you as an individual is same as that reality. Then we have got the Anusandhana Vakya, where we constantly contemplate, think on that, and that is Aham Brahmasmi. And lastly, when you say Ayam Atma Brahma, it is a Swarupa Bodha. It is an Anubhava Bodha. What does it mean? When you say, you constantly ponder that, that particular disciple puts his finger near the heart. And like that he says, I am Atma. So Ayam means what? That Ishwaram Surabodhana Hrideshe Judatistrati. So they say in the scriptures also that the God as an Antaryami resides in our heart. And not some people say biological heart is different from spiritual heart, but I don't think that way it is that. I've discussed with many people and they say that what we understand as our physical heart is that same thing, no other heart is there, and within that heart you can say that Antaryami inside, that I am Atma, that Antaryami, the Parabrahman which resides in this particular heart is I am Atma Brahma, is same as Brahma. So this is called as Anubhava Bodha and this is called as Aparokshanubhuti. Alright, so this is the ultimate message. Now Aparokshanubhuti is there. So what does it mean exactly? Aparokshanubhuti? Direct experience means normally direct also is called pratyaksha. Direct word is correct actually. But when you say pratyaksha, why don't you call pratyaksha? Direct is also called pratyaksha, right? Because what we see by the eyes, that we call as pratyaksha. Or what we hear by the sense, is also called as pratyaksha, right? So why this is called not pratyaksha and aparoksha? No instrument is required is a very, very good answer actually. No instrument is required, Because when you pratyaksha means you need some aid, you need some senses, and then only you are able to see or you are able to hear something or taste something. So any jnanendriya or some kind of means is required. And without that means and knowledge doesn't take place. That's pratyaksha. Paroksha is there, mind is there, intellect is there, and based upon that we are able to, whatever some teacher will say, we have learned about heaven, we have learned about other foreign countries, that's paroksha for us, That it is not through indriyas, but we have been able to learn it by inference or by some other mechanism, that's called as paroksha. That is not a matter of immediate experience, correct? But even in that paroksha, also you will require some medium, mind, intellect, thinking like that. They see very rightly said, when anything reveals to us spontaneously, not deliberately. Deliberately means you just try to exercise something, gain something, and something happens to us. That's not the deliberate knowledge, but something which happens spontaneously. That is called as aparoksha. So here they say that when all these other effects of anatma are taken care of, the antakarana is rendered pure, subtle, very subtle, in that instead of vishakara vritti, the thoughts pertaining to the world, pertaining to the field, the brahmakara vritti will happen. And brahmakara vritti will happen in that intellect only. So buddhi is not to be negated permanently. Correct? Mind and buddhi, as I said yesterday, they are instruments given by God. They are a part of Ishvara Srishti. They are not useless. But because they are not in the right condition, that is why, that there is a need for that. And it is basically the entire essence of Mother Worship is also like this. Just I can connect it since the thought has come to me. That basically our antakarana is basically all our physical body or the subtle body is karya. Correct? And because of that Paramatma's Maya Shakti, it has come. So because of that Paramatma, we have got Satchidananda. Because of that Paramatma, we have got Satchidananda. And besides Satchidananda, what else do we have? What else do we have? Namarupa. There is one word, there is one sloka. I think this will be a nice way to understand. In Dhritarashtra Viveka. Dhritarashtra Viveka is a Prakarana Grantha by Shankaracharya. And he says like this, that Asti Bhati Priyam Rupam Nama Chetya Ansha Panchakam Adyatraya Brahma Rupam Jagat Rupam Tayotvaya. So anything in the world if you see, Jagat, right? Yesterday we were talking about that Karya Karana Vivek, correct? So supposing we see Jagat as the Karya, and we said yesterday in Karya Karana Vivek also that Karana is always there in that particular Karya. So there are 5 elements are there. What are they? Asti. means exists. Any object is there, means it exists. So suppose I take this particular marker or particular this stainless steel, anything exists, that is called as Sat. Chit means it reveals to us. It expresses itself, maybe by color, by form, by taste, whatever, it reveals to us. So it is called as Chit Swarupa is also there. And Ananda. Ananda is actually infiniteness. In Sachit Ananda, Ananda actually means infinity, infiniteness. Ananta also. Both are same word. So, Ananda means is it useful to somebody? And the answer is any object in the world will have some use to somebody. Even human excreta or the animal excreta also will have some use for the corona bacteria which will decompose that. And that is how the whole cycle in the world continues. So what you consider as most distressful, most regrettable, it also is useful to somebody. So anything in the world, if you see, that is made up of Sat, Chit and Ananda is there. Because Karana is there, so Karya will be there. But then Karya will have two more things. What are they? Nama and Rupa. What are they? Nama and Rupa. So Nama and Rupa, how do they come? Nama and Rupa is come because that Satchidananda Parabrahman unites with the Maya, unites with the Prakriti, and the whole world comes into the. So Satchidananda part comes from the Parabrahman. And Namarupa comes from what? Namarupa comes because of that Maya, or because of the Prakriti, who worship as Divine Mother. So we have the option of both, working in Nirguna Nirakara Brahman, this Samum Sakara Brahman, or Maya also what we worship here. Now, Maya, when you say, Namarupa is there. So Namarupa, what qualities they have? What qualities they have Namarupa? First of all, Nama and Rupa also understand that Parabrahman, Supreme Reality was all alone. Someday it aspired that I want to become many. And the first vibration that happened, that is called Omkar. So Om, O and O, A and O is a name for that Parabrahman. Is a name for that Supreme Reality. And Om is a monosyllable. In Bhagavad Gita, also 10th chapter, we say that everywhere it says Om is a monosyllable, and that is the name for the Parabrahman. So you don't need any name actually, but because we are in the relative field, we require name and form. So there are two things which are there, name and form. Right? So everything has a name and everything has a form. And when you connect the name and the form, we connect it with that original object. Right? So between the two, name is more comprehensive. Name is more comprehensive. So Namarupa for Jagat we say is not all that useful. But here let us say that because of that Maya, Namarupa has come. Nama is more. Supposing some great person is there, his figure dies away, his image figure may not remain, but name will remain for many, many years. So among the Namarupa, that Nam is very essential. And here when we say that there are 5 elements, Asti Bhati Priyam Rupam. So Asti Bhati and Priya, they are the attributes, they are the intrinsic attributes, of that Parabrahman. And the Namarupa, they are the attributes of Maya or Rupa. Now, because of that Maya. Now, Maya has got 3 gunas. Maya has got 3 gunas. Which are they? Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So, anything that comes into existence, Jagat will have Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. And Paramatma is Triguna, Dita, Nirguna. Correct? So, Paramatma doesn't have any particular quality, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. It's above these 3 gunas also. But whenever Maya association is there, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas will come. So when you want to attain to that Gunatit, we are in the field of Gunas, we are in the field of relative world. So how do we do it? And that is why the mother worship is there, That because we are struck down, actually if you read that whole book of Gurudev, God as mother, it is beautifully described, that for ordinary worldly man, what will happen? The first worship should be for Saraswati. Because that is what reflects the creation. That is what reflects the creation. So whenever the creation is there, that is that Rajoguna is there, so creation is there. So all the artists, all the painters, they always think of Saraswati first, We normally worship Lord Ganesha also, but Lord Ganesha is for avoiding obstacle in negative sense. But really for creation is Saraswati to worship. Even when your course started, you started Saraswati worship also. But that is they worship first Saraswati, and when you worship Saraswati, in that worldly form, for the worldly person, correct? Then that is called as Avidya Maya. They worship Saraswati so that may good creation come to me, may good things happen to me, may I learn new things, may I achieve new things. And then comes the role of Mother Lakshmi. that whatever has been created, may it be sustained, may it stay with me, may it not go away, may it multiply, may it grow. And then, at some point of time, we realize, that so undesirable things are there, and anything in the world cannot give you permanent. Ultimately, it has to be dissolved. So first came Rajas, then came Sattva, and then minus Tamas. So that is where we worship Mahakali. So whatever is undesirable in us, whatever obstacles are there, may it be removed. May it be a happy life. What problems are there, may go. This is the worship of a ordinary worldly man of Mother. You worship Saraswati, you worship Lakshmi, and you worship Durga. What for? Initially, may good things happen to me, create to me. Then may it all be sustained. Artha Lakshmi is there, everything may come to me. And then comes, that whatever is not good, what objectionable, may it go away. Like that we worship that, correct? So that is the way we worship ordinary sadhana. And this is called avidya maya. So there are two ways of worshipping Mother worship. That is what the book explains. This is called avidya maya. And they say that sadhaka follows the reverse process, First is involution of spirit into matter. Spirit has come into matter. So this way, all ordinary people worship Mother. Sadhaka will not worship this way. He is following the reverse way. For him, Durga will come first. Why? Because Antarkarana mind is full of clashes, full of impurities, raga and dvesha. Unless and until they are there, I just cannot progress anything like that. So that Mother Mahakali form that we see, all those skull, garland, this and that. Any South Indian man will think, how can this goddess be like this? It's compassionate. But that, Sivananda then explained that supposing you are suffering from severe infective disease, and if you take an antibiotic, that will remove the microbes. Is it bad in some way? So no, it is very required. So whatever is negative in my spiritual art has to be removed. So for sadhaka, the first worship is Durga or Mahakali. Whatever is negative may go away from her. Right? And then comes the worship of Mother Lakshmi. The first is evolution of spirit into matter. Second is evolution of man to Godhead. So evolution of spirit into matter is a worldly man's way, correct? And sadhaka is what is the reverse thing. Evolution of man to Godhead. I don't want to, enough is enough. I don't want more money, I don't want more property, I don't want more post. Enough is enough. I want to go back. The first worships Mahakali Mother Durga. Whatever impurities are there in my mind, may they go away. So that I progress further. And for him, what is Lakshmi? For him, Lakshmi is not wealth. Although both sadhakas are worshipping Lakshmi. Avidya Maya is one way. Vidya Maya is reverse way. Whatever he thinks, whatever sadhana I have done, whatever spiritual progress I have made, prosper. Money may come and go, maybe they are not there. I am not Grabha Yogakshema, but let my spiritual personality not decay. In Bhagavad Gita also they say, Uddarit Atmanatmanam Atmanam Avasade. Let it not fall back. So that is Mother Lakshmi for sadhaka. And then again he comes back to Saraswati. So Saraswati says, okay, you started from cycle and again you are coming back. But now not for creation of worldly thing, Now that Sattva, Rajas and Tamas is gone. So in that whole Durga Sattva, they were ready Madhu Kaitam with the removal of that Tamas. And then Mahishasura is removal of the Rajas. And Shumbanishum yesterday, that is the even overcoming of that Sattva also. Sattva alone is not good enough. And they are more difficult to overcome than cover these Rajas and Tamas. So Mother worship in that sense. This is how the whole connection came. By His grace only this thought struck to me. That this is how we can conclude like this. That Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, they are good as far as in the relative world, but ultimately they have to be transcended. And the Suddha Sattva they call it, that is Gunadi Namaskar. And there. So two ways, we can worship Mother also, and we can worship Paramatma also. Devi Isha Gunamai. Maya, this is very, very difficult to understand. Devi Isha Gunamai, Maya Duratya, Mam Evrabdanya Maya Vidandarati. So we may worship Bhagavan also, and then Maya will become a source of bliss. What has separated matter from the spirit, a help of matter, is joined with the spirit. So when you look at any world object, that Sattva, that Satchitananda is part because of the Parabrahma. Nama Rupa, which is Trigunatmika, that is because of the Maya we cannot see, but Maya we can see only through these three gunas. Otherwise Maya cannot be seen, it is incomprehensible. So these three gunas we have to utilize in the way they are. Initially release the Sattva, and later on even transcend the Sattva to be able to do that. And for that again we need Mother's grace, we also need Ishvara's grace, both are one and the same, they are not different. So this is the way we have seen. The other part we could not see, but as I said yesterday, that Karya Karana Vivek was one thing. Avasthatraya Vivek indirectly we have seen also, correct? So these are the three prakriyas which we can see, and that is how we can attain the state of Brahman, correct? So Avasthatraya Vivek and Panchakosha Vivek also indirectly we have seen also. That is, there are not actually 5 koshes are there, but they look like that areas, you know. And all the 5 elements of human personality, they are helpful to us, and they are there because of the Atman. But ultimately, by negating each, ultimately you have to reach to that state which is beyond this 5 kosha. So there is Panchakosha Vivek, Avasthatraya Vivek, and Karya Karana Vivek. Those are 3 prokriyas which are described in this Upanishads in a different way. But the way maybe means are different, but the goal is one and the same. That the Jiva or the Ishvara that we are, that we think ourselves to be, is same as Ishvara or the Supreme Reality in essence, and the Jagat which has come out of that is not different from the Brahman or I. This is the message, and we need Mother's grace also. Because why we are not able to perceive is also because of the avidya also, that is also. So, and the same mother, you know, can be, that is why in the mother's point you can see the 2 things. You know, one thing is there's a rock and there's a knife also. So it can bind, it can liberate. It has both the capacities. So for a sadhaka, it has a liberating power potential. That is why during the Navratri days, you know, by her solemn grace, this interaction has been improved. I am extremely grateful to Divine Mother to go there, to Yogadan for a academy, to all lovely, you know, aspirants, students, you know, who are so patiently, so nicely listening this small sharing. I offer this small sharing and the given me to Mother, and conclude with the prayers that may her grace, may Guru's grace ever abound in our life, and may we all progress spiritually to attain the summum bonum beyond life. Hare